Now, let's quickly actually go back to the scoreboard here and notice that Bobby Fischer finished in 6th place in this was really his first international event, and he was only 15 years old, which I know by today's standards is nothing, but back in those days, that was definitely something. This game against Oscar Panno, one of my favorites is Oscar Panno. He's still alive, Panno is. He was born March 17th, 1935, and he was the first South American-born grandmaster, first superstar of South American chess. In 1953, Panno won the World Junior Championship, not to mention the championship of his nation, Argentina. He went on to win 3 other Argentine championships as well. Those were in 1975, 85, and 92. In 54, he won the South American Championship, which was at Mar del Plata. And in that event, it doubled as a zonal, so he qualified for the Gothenburg Interzonal in 55. He placed 3rd place in the Gothenburg, and that entitled him to play in the candidates at Amsterdam in 1956. Of course, he was obviously involved in the 1958 Interzonal, since that's what this event is. He played in the 1970 Interzonal at Palma de Mallorca. He played at the Petropolis Interzonal in 1973. He played in the Manila Interzonal in 1976. So how did he get to those Interzonals? Well, he won the Pan American Championship in 58, the so-called Tournament of the Americas. That was in Bogota. And he won 3 subsequent championships of South America in Rio de Janeiro in 1957, Rio Hondo in 66, and then at Mar del Plata in 1969. Now, speaking of, was I speaking of YouTube? Oops. I mentioned that he's still alive, and he has a YouTube channel. That's what I was going to tell you. He has a YouTube channel, and I'll give you the link to his channel. Now, it's in Spanish. He's from Argentina, after all. But there are like 94 videos there, approximately 1 hour each. So if you can work through Spanish, do that. Otherwise, turn on the subtitles. Oscar Roberto Panno, still alive at the age of 88. E4 is answered today by the Sicilian defense, C5, knight F3, and knight C6, the old Sicilian. D4 is going to lead to an open Sicilian with pawn takes pawn and knight takes pawn. And after G6, which is your accelerated dragon variation, we go with knight C3, which is your modern variation. All right, bishop G7 right here, bishop E3, knight F6, bishop C4, castles, pawn F3, queen B6, bishop B3 right here. This is a slick move, knight takes E4, discovering a super attack on that knight, which is only twice defended. Knight D5 hits the queen, queen A5 check, buys a move, pawn to C3. Now here, knight to C5, knight takes the knight on C6, pawn takes the knight on C6, now knight takes the pawn on E7. That's a check, forcing king H8. Knight takes the bishop on C8, and the queen's rook takes the knight. We castle here, no mistakes on either side. Queen's rook to D8. You can start with king's rook to E8, which has been played a handful of times, and that hits the bishop, which will just tuck away on F2 right here, and then the queen's rook will come to the D8 square. But in this game, Panno with rook d8 right away. Queen c2, queen b5. Here again, you can play rook f to e8. It is the most popular move. And the idea here is not only to get the rook on an open file, but to vacate the square with this diagonal blunted against this bishop. The idea is to relocate the bishop on the f8, a3 diagonal. So if bishop f2 here, and knight takes the bishop, or queen b5 is also frequently played played in this line. That's a possibility as well. But on the knight takes bishop, we pick up the knight with our queen and target that pawn there, which is usually defended by a rook. So coming back, queen b5 right away from Panno, and the king's rook comes to d1. And yeah, we've got a very equal position, an impeccable opening. By the way, bishop takes knight is most frequently played here. And here you can actually interpose with your queen, and the queens will get traded. Rook fd1, though, from Fischer. King back to g8. Rook takes the rook on d8. Rook takes the rook. Now rook to d1. Rook to e8, hitting the bishop. Bishop f2. Pawn a5 with the threat of pawn a4. That would trap the bishop since all of these squares are hot. So Bobby goes ahead and captures this knight, decoying the queen. The idea is, of course, that this will no longer be possible. Now, it was here that the players already agreed to a draw. Only 21 moves and 0 mistakes. Quite an impeccable game. Their openings were flawless, and their middle game was flawless. Now get this, the accuracies for Fischer, the accuracy was 98.8, and for Panno, the accuracy was 99. Listen to these single game rating assessments that they were awarded by the analysis bot. Bobby played at a 3100 level. 15-year-old Bobby Fischer played at a 3100 level. For those who say that the players back then couldn't play like the players today, the computer has assessed his playing strength in this game at 3100 and Panno's at 3250. Take that, Hikaru.